The great council hall was filled with laughter, cruel laughter that echoed from the tall golden walls. The brightest lights of the galaxy shone on the stage where one human stood alone. He was tall, steady, and silent, while hundreds of alien nobles stared at him with mocking eyes. They laughed because of his choice, they laughed because of his claim. He had claimed the alien king's disgraced daughter, the one no noble wanted, the one they whispered was cursed, the one they called shame of the royal blood. Foolish human. One alien sneered, his scales glittering under the lamps. You could have chosen wealth, power, or alliances, yet you chose her, the broken one. Another noble smirked. Perhaps humans have poor eyes, or perhaps he enjoys filth. Laughter burst again, sharper, louder, and crueler. The human did not bow, he did not flinch. His eyes stayed firm, his jaw tight. He looked like stone standing among rivers of insults. His voice finally rose, steady and deep. You may laugh, but I see what you cannot. One day you will see her worth. The laughter slowed for a moment, only to rise again, now mixed with anger. The council hated being challenged, hated being told they were blind. At the far side of the hall, guarded by two alien soldiers, she stood, the disgraced daughter, her head lowered, her shoulders trembling under the weight of 1,000 cruel eyes. Her dress was plain, her hair undone, her face partly hidden. She looked fragile, like a flower trampled too many times. She could hear the words thrown at her. Cursed child, worthless royal. Why does she still live? And her heart sank deeper. But the human's words reached her, his tone strong, different from the sneers she knew all her life. For the first time, she lifted her eyes just slightly to look at him. The human's gaze was not filled with pity. It was not filled with disgust. It was steady, almost defiant, as if he dared the galaxy to challenge his choice. Something inside her stirred. A question, a doubt. Why would this human, mocked and ridiculed, still stand by her? The alien king himself did not look at his daughter. His face carved in cold stone, his silence worse than insults. He had cast her aside years ago, never speaking her name again. In his eyes, she did not exist. Yet here was a human, a stranger, from a distant star willing to raise his hand and claim her. The council leader rose from his throne, his robe sweeping the floor. His voice rang heavy. Human, you insult this hall. You insult the galaxy by speaking of worth and trash. Do you not see? She is no one. A shadow. A failure. Your claim is foolish. Your honor is broken. The human stepped forward. The guards tensed, but he did not reach for a weapon. Instead, he raised his hand and pointed, not at the nobles, not at the council, but at the girl. She is mine now, he said calmly. Laugh all you want, mock all you want, but no one will take her from me. A hush fell for a brief moment, as if the hall itself froze. The words were simple yet heavy. They carried something the council had forgotten. Conviction. The nobles burst again into chaos, some shouting with laughter, others roaring with rage. Arrogant human! Insane creature! He dares speak like a king. The echoes shook the chamber, but the human did not move. He stood like a pillar against a storm. The daughter's heart beat faster, her breath caught. She could not understand. She could not believe it. All her life she was told she was nothing, that she would be hidden until death took her quietly. Yet here he was, fighting with only words, daring to face the galaxy's scorn for her sake. Her lips trembled as if to whisper, but no sound came out. She wanted to ask why. Why would he do this? The council leader struck his staff on the ground. The sound cracked through the noise. So be it, human. Claim your disgrace. Claim your shame. She is yours. But remember this. The galaxy does not forget weakness, and it will destroy you both. The words hung heavy in the air like a curse, but the human's expression did not change. He turned slightly, his eyes meeting the daughter's across the hall, his gaze steady, almost warm. For the first time in her life, she did not feel invisible. For the first time she felt seen. The council laughed again. The nobles whispered. The king stayed silent, and the human simply stood there, unshaken. The galaxy thought it was the end of his honor, but perhaps it was only the beginning of something greater. The heavy doors of the council hall slammed shut. The echo followed the human and the alien girl as they were led away by guards. Laughter still rang in the corridors like a cruel shadow. The human walked with steady steps, but beside him the daughter of the alien king kept her head low. Her name was Kayla, though no one dared speak it in the council anymore. She was not called princess, not called daughter, only the disgraced one. In her mind those words burned like scars. She had learned to hide her face, to move quietly, to never speak. But now the world had changed. A human stranger had spoken for her. A human had claimed her, and she could not understand why. The guards left them in a dim chamber, a place meant for the unwanted. Its walls were cracked, its light was dull. The human did not complain. He simply sat down on the stone bench, his eyes turning toward Kayla. She stayed near the corner, hugging herself, her thin frame trembling. "Do not fear," the human said quietly, his voice softer than before. "I did not take you to harm you." Kayla's eyes lifted, wide and unsure. No one had ever spoken to her like that, not even her own father. "Why?" she whispered, her voice cracked. "Why me? I am nothing." The words slipped from her lips like chains she carried for years. The human leaned forward, his gaze steady. "Because they are wrong. You are not nothing." Kayla's breath caught. Disbelief struck her chest. She shook her head. "You do not know they call me cursed. They say I bring shame. They say even the stars turn dark around me." Her voice broke. Tears glimmered in her eyes, but she forced them down. The human stood and walked closer. Not too close, but close enough that his shadow touched hers. "And yet I stand here, still breathing, still unbroken. Their words do not change truth." Kayla turned away, her heart confused. She wanted to believe him, but every memory in her life told her not to trust, not to hope. Silence stretched in. The chamber broken only by the hum of alien lights. Then the human asked gently, "What do you see when you look at yourself?" Kayla froze. No one had ever asked her that. No one cared what she saw. Her lips trembled. I see someone weak, someone unworthy." The human's jaw tightened, his voice firm. "Then you see what they forced you to see, not what is real." She did not reply, but her fingers clutched her torn sleeves tighter. Moments passed before a knock came. Food was pushed inside. 2 bowls of thin gray stew, the kind served to prisoners. Kayla looked at it with tired eyes. She was used to such treatment. She waited for the human to take his share first, but instead, he picked both bowls and carried them to her side, placing one in her hands. "Eat," he said simply. Kayla hesitated, her hands shook. You are not disgusted to sit near me?" The human gave a short laugh. "I have faced worse than hunger, worse than fear. I do not break so easily." Kayla blinked, unsure if he mocked her or truly meant it. Yet when she tasted the stew, she noticed he ate without hesitation as if nothing was wrong. Her eyes lingered on him, a question burning inside. Why did you not choose someone else? There were others. Beautiful, strong, noble. The human met her gaze calmly. Because they already had everything, but you had no one. His words struck her heart like a quiet flame. For the first time, Kayla let herself look at him properly. His face was rough but steady, his eyes clear. There was no mockery, no disgust, only strange determination. It frightened her more than cruelty, because kindness was something she did not know how to bear. A sound outside broke. The fragile moment, whispers, heavy boots, the guards speaking quickly. Kayla stiffened, fear rising in her chest. The human stood tall, his eyes narrowing. Danger was near, he could feel it, Kayla whispered, her voice shaking. They will not stop. They will try to break you, just like they broke me. The human turned, his jaw set. Let them try, her. Breath trembled, and in that instant she saw something terrifying and powerful in him. Not arrogance, but unshakable will. For the first time in her life, Kayla wondered if maybe, just maybe, she was not doomed to be only the disgraced one. Maybe. With this strange human, her story was not ending. It was only beginning. The chamber was silent. But inside Kyla's heart there was a storm. She sat with her knees pulled close, her head resting against the cold wall, her thoughts heavy like chains. The human sat across from her, calm, his back against the bench. He did not try to force words, he did not press her to speak, he simply waited. That patience made her more uneasy than anger ever could, because she was used to rage, to insults, to being ignored. But she was not used to someone waiting for her voice. At last Kayla whispered, "You don't understand, human, you don't know what I have lived." Her voice was flat, her eyes dull. Since birth I was told I was wrong. My presence was shame. When I walked in the palace, the servants turned. Their backs when I entered the court, nobles sneered, even my father. Even he looked through me as if I was air. The words cracked like broken glass, and though she tried to hide it, her shoulders trembled. The human listened without moving, his eyes steady, but inside, anger burned at the cruelty she had endured. "Kayla," continued, her voice rising, "do you know what it feels like to be alive yet treated as if you are already dead? Every day I wished I would vanish so no one had to see me, so I would not feel their stares." She pressed her face into her hands, her words muffled. "When you spoke for me, when you claimed me, I thought it was a cruel trick, another mockery." The human finally spoke, his voice deep and calm. "Do I look like a man who plays tricks?" Kayla looked up, her tears shining in the dim light, and shook her head slowly. "No, that is what scares me." The human leaned forward, slightly. "Why?" Kayla's lips trembled. "Because if you are serious, then you will suffer for me, and I do not want that. I cannot be the reason another life is ruined." Her words struck the air like a blade. Silence followed. Then the human let out a slow breath. "You are not the reason," he said. "The council, the king, the nobles, they are the reason. They fear what they cannot understand. And they chose to throw their fear onto you, but I am not them." Kayla's heart twisted. She wanted to believe, but she could not. Her rejection was too deep, too old. "You will regret this," she whispered. "Everyone does in the end." The human stood, his figure tall against the dim light, his voice firm. "Then let me regret, if that is my path, but I will not leave you." The words carried such weight that Kayla's chest ached. She turned away, unable to hold his gaze. Suddenly, the sound of the chamber door unlocking shattered the fragile moment. 2 guards entered, their expressions cold. "The council requests the human's presence," one of them said. "The girl stays." Kyla's breath quickened. Fear flashed. In her eyes, she reached out without thinking, her fingers brushing the human's sleeve. "Don't go," she whispered, almost like a child begging in the dark. The human placed his hand gently over hers, his touch steady. "I will return," he promised. The guards laughed harshly. "If you survive," one muttered, but the human ignored them. As they led him away, Kayla pressed her hand against her chest, her heart pounding, her mind screamed, "He will not come back. No one ever comes back for me." Hours passed, the chamber cold and silent. Kayla's thoughts clawed at her. She remembered the times when servants locked her away to hide her from guests, the times she begged for food and was given scraps, the times she dreamed of her father's hand on her shoulder, but woke only to the weight of loneliness. Now, once again, she was left behind, her fear growing stronger with each passing minute. But then footsteps returned, heavy and sure. The door opened, and there he was. The human, his face marked with fresh bruises, his clothes torn, but his eyes still steady. He walked in as if nothing had happened, sat down, and simply said, "Told you I would return." Kayla's breath caught, her throat tight. Tears filled her eyes before she could stop them. She turned away quickly, hiding her face. But her heart whispered something she had never dared think before. Maybe this human is different. Maybe he will not abandon me. The weight of rejection was still heavy, but for the first time in her life she felt a small crack in the chains, a sliver of light breaking through. The council chamber was not quiet after the human left. Voices rose like storm winds. Nobles argued, ministers whispered, and in the shadows, hidden plots began to take shape. He cannot be allowed to stand so boldly. One alien hissed, his skin shimmering blue with anger. If he makes the girl rise, our own power will fall. Another nodded, his sharp teeth glinting. She carries a bloodline that was sealed for a reason. We cannot risk it waking again. We must end this quickly. They did not speak openly in front of the king, but everyone knew the truth. The council feared not only the human stubbornness, but also the girl's hidden heritage. Meanwhile, Kayla sat in the dim chamber, her heart torn between fear and confusion. The human sat near her, his wounds from the council's trial still fresh. But he looked calm, as if nothing touched him. She wanted to ask what they had done to him, but her lips stayed closed. Fear kept her silent. The human noticed her troubled gaze. "You think too much," he said softly. "Fear will only give them what they want." Kyla lowered her eyes, whispering, "But what if they are, right? What if I truly am cursed?" The human shook his head. "Curses are only words used by cowards. I do not believe in them." Her chest tightened. No one had ever dismissed her shame so simply. Yet before she could answer, the chamber door creaked. A guard entered, but this one was not like the others. His eyes flickered nervously as he set down a jug of water. He lingered too long, his gaze sliding toward Kayla with something darker than duty. The human stood immediately, his presence sharp, his voice like steel. "Leave." The guard hesitated, then smirked. "She is not worth your defense, human. No one would care if she vanished tonight." Kayla froze, fear gripping her. The human stepped closer, his fists clenched, his voice low and dangerous. "Try, and you will not see another sunrise." The guard's smirk faded, his courage cracked under the human's stare, and he left quickly, but his eyes promised trouble. Kayla's hands shook, her breath shallow. They are planning something." The human nodded, his tone steady. "Yes, they want you gone, but let them come." His words were calm, but his mind sharpened. He knew enemies moved in the dark. That night, the corridors outside filled with whispers, shadows shifting. Mercenaries hired by the council crept toward the chamber, their steps silent, their weapons ready. Inside, Kayla could not sleep, her chest heavy with dread. Every sound in the corridor made her tremble. The human remained awake, seated by the door like a sentinel, his eyes never closing, his hand resting near the weapon on his belt. When Kayla whispered, "Why do you watch when even sleep could heal you?" he answered without turning, "Because if I close my eyes, they will take you." Her heart thudded, fear mixed with something else, something she did not dare name. Moments later, the first strike came. The door creaked, then burst open. 3 shadows rushed in, blades flashing under dim light. Kayla gasped, pressing against the wall, but the human moved like a storm. His fist struck the first attacker's jaw, his elbow slammed into the second's ribs. The third raised a blade, but found it knocked aside before it could fall. The fight was fast, violent, brutal. The chamber shook with the sound of blows. Kayla could only watch with wide eyes as the human fought not as a noble or soldier, but as someone who had faced battles before. Blood splashed, a mercenary groaned, another fled. But the human did not chase. He only blocked the doorway with his body. Breathing heavy, he turned back to Kayla. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head quickly, though her heart pounded. "No, but you are bleeding." The human glanced at the cut on his arm as if it were nothing. "It will heal." Kayla stared at him, her fear mixing with awe. No one had ever stood for her like this. No one had ever faced danger to keep her safe. Her lips parted, words trembling out. "Why do you risk yourself for me?" The human's eyes softened for the first time, his voice quiet but firm. "Because someone has to, and I choose to." Her breath caught, her chest tight. She could not reply, because the truth she had hidden for so long, the longing to be chosen, to be wanted, suddenly rose like fire inside her. Outside, the whispers grew louder. More enemies would come. The council's conspiracy was only beginning. But inside the chamber, something stronger than fear was born. A fragile bond between a human mocked for his choice and a daughter long forgotten. The council's attack had failed. But silence after violence was often more dangerous than the storm itself. Kayla sat in the corner of the chamber, her eyes wide, her body trembling from the memory of blades flashing in the dark. The human, wounded but steady, cleaned his arm with torn cloth, his movements calm, as if fighting for his life was nothing new. For a long time, Kayla stared at him, questions circling in her mind, but one pressed harder than the rest. "Why do they want me gone so badly?" she whispered, her voice thin. The human looked at her, his eyes sharp. "Because they fear you." Kayla froze, shaking her head quickly. "Fear me? I am nothing. Weak, shamed, cursed." The human leaned closer, his voice quiet, steady. "Weak people do not earn such hatred, Kayla. Only those with something powerful do." Her breath caught, her lips trembled, but she had no answer. That night, when the guards changed shifts, the human insisted Kayla rest, though he remained awake, yet sleep claimed her for a short while, and with it came dreams of her childhood, of her father's throne room, of nights when her body burned with strange energy she could not control, lights flickering, glass breaking, servants screaming. She woke with a sharp gasp, sweat running down her face, her hands glowing faintly for only a second before the light faded. The human saw it, his eyes narrowing. "So, it is true." Kayla's heart pounded, her whole body cold. No, you don't understand. It is a curse. It brings only ruin." The human shook his head slowly. "That is not a curse, Kayla. That is power." She pressed her hands into her chest, trembling. "Power? It destroyed everything. It made them hate me. It made my father cast me away." Her words broke like glass. Her tears fell. "If I lose control, I hurt people. I hurt myself. Do you see now? I deserve their rejection." The human reached out not to touch her but to steady her with his voice. "No, you do not deserve pain for being different. They feared what they could not control, so they buried it in shame." Kayla stared at him, her breath uneven. "Why are you not afraid of me?" The human's eyes softened, yet his tone stayed strong. "Because I have seen monsters, Kayla, and you are not one of them." Her chest tightened, her mind screamed to deny it, but deep inside, a fragile warmth flickered. Suddenly, the chamber door opened with force. A council messenger entered, flanked by soldiers, his expression hard. "By order of the council, the girl is to be examined," he declared coldly. "The human has no right to refuse." Kayla's face went pale. Fear gripped her throat. "Examine? They mean to test the curse," she whispered. The human stood instantly, his body tense. "No," his voice thundered. "She is under my claim. You will not take her." The soldiers raised their weapons. The messenger sneered. "You think your claim matters here? She is royal blood, but not royal power. She is ours to dissect if we wish." Kayla's knees weakened. She remembered the old stories, the whispers of hidden bloodlines, how generations ago her ancestors touched energies too dangerous, how her father feared it would return through her veins. This was why they hated her. This was why she was hidden. This was why she was unwanted. But before fear drowned her, the human stepped between her and the soldiers, his voice sharp as a blade. "You will not touch her." The soldiers lunged. Kayla screamed, and in that instant her fear exploded. Light burst from her hands, blinding the chamber in silver fire. The soldiers cried out, thrown back against the walls. Weapons clattering, the messenger fell to his knees, eyes wide in terror. Kayla gasped, staring at her own hands glowing, energy crackling like lightning under her skin. She could not stop it. Tears streamed down her face. "I told you, I am cursed." But the human grabbed her wrists, firm but not cruel, his voice cutting through her panic. "No, listen to me. This is not a curse. This is your strength. You saved us." Her breath shook violently, the glow fading slowly as his words reached her. The soldiers lay groaning, afraid to rise. The messenger scrambled out, whispering, "It is true. The bloodline has awakened." Silence fell. Kayla's body trembled, her hands limp in the human's grip. She whispered brokenly, Now you see. Now you know. You will leave me too. The human's jaw tightened, his eyes fierce. No, Kayla. Now I see why they fear you, and I will not leave you, not ever. Her tears fell freely, but for the first time, they were mixed with something new. Hope. Fragile. Terrifying hope. Outside, the council would soon hear the truth, and the galaxy itself might turn against her, but in that dim chamber, one human's unshakable voice cut through the darkness. You are not their disgrace, Kyla, he said firmly. You are mine, and together, we will show them what that means. The council chamber roared with noise. Word of Kyla's outburst spread through the palace like wildfire. Nobles whispered in terror. Guards trembled at the memory of silver light, and ministers argued over what to do. The bloodline has returned, one alien shouted, his eyes wide. We warned the king this would happen. Another hissed. It must be contained. If the girl is not destroyed, the galaxy will fall into chaos. At the throne, the alien king sat in silence, his eyes cold, his lips pressed thin. He had not seen his daughter's power with his own eyes, but the fear in the council was enough to stir him. Meanwhile, Kayla sat in a small chamber, her body weak after the energy burst, her hands still shaking. She pressed them against her chest as if afraid the glow would return. I told you, she whispered, her voice cracking. It's dangerous. It will ruin everything. But the human knelt before her, his voice calm and steady. No, Kayla, you saved us. If not for you, those soldiers would have dragged you away. Her eyes filled with tears. But they will never stop now. They will see me only as a threat. The human placed his hand firmly over hers, his eyes burning with resolve. Then let them see. We will not hide. We will not run. Kayla's breath caught. His words were madness, yet his voice carried such certainty that her heart trembled. Soon after, guards stormed in, ordering both of them back to the great hall. The council gathered in full. Nobles packed the balconies. Whispers like buzzing bees filled the air. The alien king sat on his throne, his gaze heavy with judgment. Kayla walked beside the human, her head bowed, shame pressing her shoulders. She felt every eye burning into her skin. But the human walked tall, his hand brushing near hers. A silent promise that she was not alone. The council leader raised his staff, his voice booming. The disgrace has shown her true nature. She carries the cursed blood. She is danger to us all. The human who claims her is blind. Or perhaps worse, a traitor. Gasps filled the hall. The word traitor struck heavy. The alien king finally spoke, his voice cold as stone. Daughter, you were cast aside for this very reason. I gave you life, yet you bring only shame. Your existence is a threat. Your claim means nothing. Kayla's knees weakened, her heart broke at her father's words. She whispered, Father, please. But before despair swallowed her, the human stepped forward, his voice strong enough to silence the crowd. Enough, he said, his tone like thunder. You call her cursed because you fear what you do not control. You call me traitor, because I see her worth when you are blind. But hear me now. She is not your disgrace, she is your future. The hall erupted with shouts. Nobles stood in outrage. Guards raised weapons. Kayla gasped, trembling. Stop. They will kill you, she whispered, pulling at his sleeve. But the human shook his head, his voice rising. If you strike her down, you prove only your weakness. If you fear her, then you admit she is stronger than you all. The council leader slammed his staff again, his voice sharp. Seize them both. Guards rushed forward. Kayla flinched, fear gripping her chest. But the human spread his arms wide, blocking her path. At that moment, Kayla felt something stir inside her. Not fear, not shame, but something new, courage. Her voice rose, trembling at first, but growing stronger. Stop. The hall froze. Every eye turned. Kayla's hands glowed faintly. But this time she did not hide them. Her tears burned with fire. All my life you called me worthless, cursed, unwanted. But I lived, she cried, her voice breaking the air. You hated me, but I survived, and now I will not bow, not anymore. The glow around her hands spread, silver light filling the hall. Nobles covered their faces. Guards stepped back, fear spreading like a wave. The alien king's face darkened, his jaw tight. But for the first time, his eyes widened with something other than disgust. Hesitation. The human stepped closer to Kayla, his voice steady, proud. That is your true voice, Kayla. Let them hear it. Let them know you are not their shame. The hall shook with the force of her power, not wild and destructive, but strong, controlled. Her glow lit the chamber brighter than the royal lamps. The council, once filled with laughter and mockery, now stared in silence. Kayla's voice rang one last time, clear and fierce. I am not your disgrace, and I will not be broken. The human stood by her side, his hand resting gently at her shoulder, his eyes defiant. Together they faced the galaxy's judgment, no longer as outcasts, but as challengers. The hall, once a place of her humiliation, had become the stage of her rise, and though danger still lurked for the first time in her life, Kayla felt something powerful in her chest, belonging. The hall was silent after Kayla's words. The silver glow around her faded slowly, leaving behind only her trembling breath and the sound of her heart racing. The council members, once mocking, now stared in uneasy silence, some with fear, others with anger, none with laughter. For the first time in her life, Kayla had spoken without shame, and the galaxy had listened. The alien king rose from his throne, his face carved in cold stone, his voice heavy. So the cursed bloodline awakens, so my daughter dares to raise her voice. Kayla flinched. Her courage threatened to falter, but beside her the human stood tall, his hand brushing lightly against her arm, a silent reminder she was not alone. The king's gaze shifted to the human, sharp as a blade. You brought this shame to light, human. You protect her as if she is treasure, but know this: treasures of fire burn their holders. The human did not bow, his voice steady. Then let it burn me, for I will not let her be destroyed. Whispers spread across the chamber. Some nobles hissed in fury, others muttered in doubt. The human's defiance was like a spark in dry wood. Kayla's heart beat faster. Her father's rejection was a wound she had carried for years, but now she looked at him with eyes no longer begging for love. Instead, they burned with something new: strength. Father, she said, her voice clear though soft. I wanted nothing more than to be seen by you, to be accepted. But if all you see is shame, then so be it. I will no longer bow to your silence. Gasps filled the air. The council reeled back. Never had the disgraced daughter spoken to the king in such words. The king's jaw tightened, his silence heavier than thunder. But the human stepped forward, his voice rising. You fear her because she carries what you cannot control. But power is not disgrace. Weakness is in hiding it, and weakness is in abandoning your own blood. The words cut deep. Murmurs rose among the nobles. Some shifted uneasily. Doubted. Creeping into their eyes, Kayla looked at the human, her chest tight. She had never been defended like this, not even in dreams. The council leader slammed his staff, trying to reclaim control. Enough! This is treason against the king, against the order of the galaxy. We must act now. But the nobles did not roar in agreement as before. Their voices were divided. Some shouted yes. Others fell into silence, their fear of Kayla's power greater than their loyalty. In that moment, Kayla felt the chains of shame that bound her heart begin to break. She straightened her shoulders, her voice rising once more. You may call me cursed, you may hate me, but I will live. And I will not be hidden again. Her words echoed, carried by the memory of the silver light she had shown. The human turned to the council, his voice firm. Mock me if you wish, laugh at me forever, but know this: I chose her, and I will not surrender her, not to you, not to anyone. The silence that followed was heavy, but something had changed. The mockery that once filled the hall was gone, replaced by caution, by unease, by the quiet realization that neither the human nor the daughter would break. The alien king slowly sat, back on his throne, his eyes unreadable, his silence stretching like iron chains. He gave no blessing, no acceptance, only cold retreat. But Kayla no longer crumbled under his silence. She turned her face away, no longer needing his approval to stand. The human placed his hand on her shoulder, steady, protective, proud, and, for the first time, she allowed herself to lean into it. Tears filled her eyes, but these were not the tears of shame, these were the tears of release. As they left the hall together, whispers followed, whispers of fear, of doubt, but also of respect. The council had wanted a spectacle of disgrace, but instead they had witnessed the rise of something they could not crush. Kayla walked with her head higher than ever before, her heart whispering a truth she never dared believe. She belonged, not because of her blood, not because of a throne, but because one human had seen her worth when no one else did. Outside, the galaxy still waited with judgment. Enemies still plotted and dangers still grew. But Kayla was no longer the girl hiding in shadows. She was the girl who had been claimed, protected, and finally believed. And as for the human, he smiled faintly as they stepped into the open air, his voice low but certain. They laughed when I chose you, Kayla, but one day they will understand. You are not their disgrace. You are their reckoning. Kayla's lips trembled, but she smiled through her tears, her voice soft. And I am not alone anymore. Together, they walked into the uncertain future, mocked by many, feared by more, but stronger than all who wished, them broken. For the story of the disgraced daughter had ended and the story of belonging had begun,